back to Marlins 9, everybody. Jeremiah Geiger with you. It's Thursday edition, solo podcast. Marlins on an off day, just coming off a sweep, getting swept on the West Coast by the Los Angeles Dodgers. They are off today before heading into a 3-game series against the Philadelphia Phillies. For the first time this season, the Phillies and the Marlins will match up for a 3-game series. And I did not forget the hat. The Miami Marlins hat. I'm going to keep repping it. I'm going to keep wearing it. Marlins fan till I die. I'm a diehard. Nothing is going to stop me from paying attention and following this team. A lot of negativity surrounding this team, and I understand. And I'm right there with you in terms of being frustrated. It sucks. Sucks to lose. Sucks to be a fan of a team right now that is already out of it. But there's still going to be opportunities to watch players develop, to hopefully see the fruits of this dark time right now. There will be better times ahead. There will be a light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm going to be there every step of the way supporting this team. Just don't be a fair weather fan. That's what it's about. You gotta be a diehard. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are a diehard fan as well. So it sucks, guys. But Marlins fans, we're gonna get through it. And I have hope. I have hope that one day I'm gonna see a World Series championship. But right now, there isn't gonna be a World Series. Isn't gonna be the playoffs. It's gonna be a long summer here in Miami. We got to tough it out. As Marlins fans. Coming off a sweep at the hands of the Dodgers, this series was never really competitive. Dodgers outclassed the Marlins in every way. They pitched better, coming up with real key timely hits. The home run ball, the ball was flying out of Dodger Stadium, especially in the first game. Unfortunately, Rodri Munoz, his luck caught up to him. Back-to-back starts to start off his major league career. Looked really good against the Cubs and the Rockies. And everybody knew heading into this matchup against the Dodgers, it was going to be really tough for him, especially looking at that beginning of the lineup. You got Mookie, you got Ohtani, you got Freddie Freeman. It's murderer's row out there. And Munoz just could not get over the long ball. Surrendered home run after home run after home run. I believe it was four homers that he gave up. I'm going to pull it up right here just to make sure. But that was also Walker Buehler's season debut, coming off Tommy John surgery. So coming off Tommy John surgery, Walker Buehler made his debut. Wasn't extremely sharp against the Marlins, but if there's any team you want your former ace to kind of get his feet wet coming off an injury, it would probably be the Miami Marlins. And that's just how it is. Walker Buehler went 4 innings, gave up 3 runs, did strike out 4. On the other side, Rodri Munoz went 4 2/3, struck out 5, but ended up giving 6 earned runs on 4 home runs. Gave up 4 homers to the Dodgers. They took that game 6-3. Go into the second game, and this was Edward Cabrera's start. And going into that game, Edward Cabrera really needed to make a statement, especially after his last couple outings, and the ERA started to tick up. And not just looking at the ERA, but in terms of, pitching deeper into games, struggling with command, the whole Edward Cabrera issues with command have started to reemerge, and you really wanted to see him go out and, as talented as he is, go into LA and battle against this lineup. Use his repertoire, use the changeup. He's got a fastball. He hardly uses the fastball, but use his off-speed pitches and really establish command with those, and then go back to the fastball and command that fastball, because that's what's killed him his entire career, is being unable to locate the fastball. And as we approach the summer months, Luis Arias gets traded. As Marlins fans, you start to think about what possible trade assets you have. And Edward Cabrera's name has floated around for, honestly, years. The last couple years, his name has floated around trade rumors. Being as the Marlins have pitching depth, it was an issue of, well, if Edward Cabrera is the odd man out, he's got all the talent in the world. He's got such an electric arm. You could get a decent prospect return. Well, it's not looking very good for Edward Cabrera in terms of getting a prospect return, a quality package back in a trade. And not only that, it's not looking good for his outlook in the rotation, not just the Marlins rotation, in any rotation. Because once again, and I have the numbers here, Edward Cabrera cannot control his stuff. He just can't. Goes 2 innings, walked 4. He walked 4, gave up a grand slam to Max Muncy. Dodgers end up winning a doozy of a game, 8-2. It was really over by the end of the third inning. Dodgers 8 quick runs. Edward gets bounced out. ERA right now is over 7. The walks have returned. And you have to wonder if this is it for Edward Cabrera in terms of him being a building block for the Marlins rotation moving forward. Because now you have Braxton Garrett coming back. You do have guys who have made their debut like Rodrigo Munoz, but it's been years. It's been multiple years for Edward Cabrera, and they've given him time after time to try to fix his command. And for whatever reason, his career has slowly turned into a tale of what could have been. And it's sad. Such a talented arm. And there's only so many shots you get. Baseball's a business. I've said it before. And ultimately, the truth is, if you don't perform, they will move on from you. And Edward Cabrera right now, I can't make any more excuses for him. He goes out and he'll strike out 10, he'll strike out 12. He'll look absolutely unhittable when he's on. Unhittable. But the lack of consistency, the sheer ratio of walks to innings pitched, inability to pitch deep into games, I think it's the end of the line. I think it's the end of the line for Edward Cabrera. Will a change of scenery help? Will another pitching coach, will another organization be able to help him and recover and resurrect his career? Because right now he is turning into somebody that you can't run out every 5th day. It's just the inconsistency is too much. It's too much. Is he better suited for the bullpen? That's a question that's kind of hovered around him for a while. What will the Marlins do with Edward Cabrera? I don't know, because right now the return, you try to ship him off in a trade, the return's not going to be there. The return is not going to be there. It's not worth, nobody's going to overpay for him. You're not going to get a top 100 prospect, let alone multiple top 100 prospects, who back in the day, you looked at Cabrera and you thought, hey, this is such a talented pitcher. You could do a 1-for-1 and get a major leaguer and put him right in the outfield. Like, teams were interested in Edward Cabrera. He was intriguing. But the more and more he pitched in Miami, he eventually kept getting optioned down last year because of the control. He comes back this year. Really excited to see him pitch. Starts off awesome. His debut this season, electric. Strikes out double digits against San Francisco. And then you see the bad side, like this past start. So personally, What I would do with Edward Cabrera, and this is my opinion, is I'm giving him. I'm considering a move to the bullpen. I'm considering a move to the bullpen, but if not, I'm still giving him another start. And that's just because, you know, you want to see at least one more just to see if you can salvage anything. If the confidence is gone, that's another big thing. If the confidence is gone, like moving him to the bullpen might not even matter, you know? So confidence is a huge thing with pitchers. Right now, his confidence is shaky. I do think you start him one more time just based on how the rotation is set up right now. But I think by the trade deadline, Edward Cabrera should be shipped off. You will see him in another team's uniform. I don't think it's going to work out in Miami. I just don't. I think it's the end of the line. There's nothing more you can do. You're not going to get the top 100 prospect, and it's not worth making him one of the big names you move. But I think you're going to see the Marlins try to trade him and take a low, not low ceiling, kind of a low floor, but really reachable 18, 19-year-old guy in single A, and just as a flyer and just see what happens, because it's not working out right now. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm intrigued to see how the front office handles Edward Cabrera. A fascinating story. And ultimately, it's turning into a sad story. Sad story of a career so promising, but just seems to not be working out. Moving on from that, spent a good chunk of time on that, on Edward Cabrera. And the last game of the season, or not the season, the series, was Ryan Weathers' start. Ryan Weathers, a guy I'm super high on at the beginning of the year, and is slowly pitching himself into all-star consideration, all-star wild card for the Marlins. You have to remember, the Marlins are going to have an all-star. Every team gets one. Well, this team is not very good, and there's no real breakout stars. But, based on statistics alone, Ryan Weathers could be pitching himself into consideration, where you look at the numbers and you just say, oh, I mean, the strikeouts are there, the innings are there. He's pitched in every available outing that he's been available for. Ryan Weathers could be considered for an all-star. I'm not saying he will be. I think Brian De La Cruz is another guy that could be right there for the Marlins all-star, and deservedly so. But to go out against the Dodgers and go 6 innings, 3 runs, the big one was the homer in the 6th, and it was a 2-run home run, broke the tie. And ultimately, that was the winning hit for the Dodgers, was that home run by Teoscar Hernandez. Weathers gets the loss, but a solid start, a quality start. And I think Weathers is pitching himself into position to be the Marlins all-star representative. And that's at the beginning of the year, last year. If you said that, a lot of people would be like, well, what are you talking about? There's no way. Good job for Weathers. Like, in all seriousness, it's a tough season to be a Marlins fan, and there are bright spots, and Weathers is a bright spot, and his development is something to note and something to follow the rest of the season. I talked about this on the Fish on First live stream last week for the Dodgers game, or at the beginning of this week, before the Dodgers series. I was a guest on the Fish on First live stream, and we were talking about potential all-star candidates for Miami, and the obvious ones were bullpen guys and Brian De La Cruz. But a wild card, if you want to throw one in there, look out for Ryan Weathers. Ryan Weathers' quality start against the toughest lineup in baseball this season in the Dodgers. And definitely every Ryan Weathers start from here on out, definitely have to continue to watch his development and progression as Miami is searching for ultimately who's going to be on this roster and who won't be on this roster, who is going to be part of this rebuild and who will not be part of this rebuild. And earlier I reached out and I said, and I asked you guys, I said, give me some topics, drop some topics you'd like me to cover. And you guys did. A couple of you did. So I'm going to go ahead and share them. First one, it's a three-piece here. And I'll put it up on the screen for you, for those of you watching on YouTube. And for those of you listening, I'll read it. This is from Action Jackson. Action Jackson, thank you for the comment on YouTube. And he says, should the Marlins extend Sandy Alcantara when his contract is up and make him a Marlin for his career? Who would you try to bring in at the deadline? And should the Marlins talk about extensions for anyone else on the team? Perez, Brian De La Cruz, and Berger. I'm going to leave this up just for a couple more minutes. Well, let's take this piece by piece here. First question, should the Marlins extend Sandy Alcantara when his contract is up and make him a Marlin for life? So that is a tough question because personally, I want Sandy to retire as a Marlin. I really do. I love Sandy Alcantara. He's one of my favorite players, one of my favorite Marlins of all time at this point. He's developed into just someone so incredibly special to watch in this day and age of baseball. And it's unfortunate that he's hurt, that he's recovering from Tommy John surgery, but he will be back at some point next year, and I'm really looking forward to that. Now, the question now goes into matter of finances. And you have to look at where the Marlins are as an organization. Are they in a position to extend a player like Sandy Alcantara? His contract is going to start kicking in and he's going to start making a lot of money. And that's just the reality of it. And deservedly so. He signed a very team-friendly deal, but the contract was definitely backloaded, where the money really starts kicking in the last 2-3 years of his deal. It was a 5-year, I believe $55 million. I'm gonna pull it up right here. $56 million, and all of it was guaranteed. But it runs through 2027. And right now, if you look at the state of the Marlins, if you've been paying attention, this team is not very good. And they're not going to be very good next year. And it's debatable if they're going to be good in 2026. 2027 might be the year, the first year we start to see any fruits of the labor, any fruits of this rebuild come to fruition. Peter Bendix has stated this is a multi-year process. This isn't just 1 year. This is going to be a long ordeal. And for someone like Sandy, who is such a competitor, is such an asset to a team when healthy, especially when you consider the contract kicking in the next couple seasons. I mean, he's not a free agent until 2028. So through 2027, he's locked in. But this year, he's making $9 million and he's injured. Next year, it really kicks up. He's going to make $17 million, and then $17 million 2026, and then his final year is $21 million. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a player on a team that is probably not going to be competitive. And the reality of the situation is, as much as I hate to say it, I think you might be looking at a team whose window has closed with competing for competing with Sandy Alcantara as the ace. I think that is the sad situation. I do not think the Marlins are going to extend Sandy to another deal, and he will finish his career in another jersey, which is sad. Which is sad because he's awesome. Awesome pitcher, awesome competitor, just amazing to watch. So that is my opinion on that. I'm going to go back to the questions. Who would I try to bring in at the deadline? And would there be anybody else that I would extend on the team? So personally, who I would try to be bringing in at the deadline, the issue comes down to trade assets. The Marlins simply don't have a lot that is gonna bring back elite prospect talent. They just don't. Jazz Chisholm, you got Tanner Scott. We already talked about Edward Cabrera. You could trade him and you could try to get a flyer prospect or two, like a really, really raw prospect, and hopefully you strike gold. But you're not going to get that major league ready prospect package. You're just not. Besides that, you got De La Cruz, you got Jake Berger. Jake Berger, lots of years of control left, but I don't think they're going to trade him. So really, you look at it, and the biggest name on this list comes down to Jazz Chisholm, and now, and Bendix knows this, the front office knows this. Now the question arises: are you going to trade him at the deadline, or are you going to wait until the offseason? Where do you think you're going to find the best prospect package? Who's going to give you the best return? So I would not be surprised if the Marlins hold on to Jazz through the summer and through the entire season. I would also not be surprised if we've seen Bendix pull the trigger early. We've seen him trade Luis Arias on May 4th. It would not surprise me if Jazz Chisholm is out of here by the trade deadline. It just depends on the prospect package you get. You also are looking at Tanner Scott. Definitely will be out of here. You could definitely get a solid prospect for him. Bullpen help is always needed, but you're not going to be getting any real major league stars. You know, I talked about this on the podcast, how you should try to build around major league talent. And you really should. It's how drafting, developing, and smart trades involving close to or major league ready prospects. That is how you should rebuild. It should not be just betting on toolsy players. It should not. But unfortunately, right now, you look at who to build around, the Marlins, you don't really have a ton because, like I said, you're going to get out of this rebuild, and that's when Jazz's contract's up. That's when De La Cruz's contract is up, and it's something where I think Miami really is going to be stripping this down, and you're going to be receiving prospects. Not going to be a lot of guys you're going to see in 2024, 2025 perform for the Marlins. You're not going to see these guys. They're going to be developing. They're going to be learning in the minors, playing every day, hopefully. So, you know, the importance of drafting and development, that's the key. The importance of drafting and development for this rebuild cannot be understated. This draft coming up is huge. This draft is absolutely huge for the Marlins. I mean, to get to where they want to be, to rebuild this thing, they have to draft well. So this year's draft, it's imperative that they don't strike out, that they don't take another Jacob Berry, take another J.J. Bleday. So we'll see. We'll see. It's definitely a draft where I'm a little more anxious than normal, just based on the direction this franchise is going. If they're full on rebuilding, they're going to rebuild. You got hit on the draft. Players I would build around: Jake Berger. Jake Berger, that was mentioned from Action Jackson. Jake Berger is somebody that I not necessarily would extend, but I would build around him. Remember, he's under control for another, what is that, 25, 26, 27, like 4 years after this one. He's got a lot of control left. So Jake Berger is somebody I'm keeping around. I'm not actively shopping him. Brian De La Cruz, it's tough. I love DLC. He's a fun player, real fun player. Came into the major, zero hype surrounding him, just flat out hit, and continues to hit and is having a really good season so far, especially in the power department. And I think DLC is a player that you look at the front office and they're all into analytics. And the analytics point out De La Cruz is not a good defender by any means. He's not a good base runner. Doesn't have a lot of tools. But he hits. And I think you're going to see DLC get shopped out of here and included in a trade somewhere. I don't think, as much as I like him, I don't think DLC is a star that you necessarily are going to build around for the next competitive Marlins team. That's just my opinion. That is what I truly think. I think he's a very good player, but I don't think he is a great player. And I think that to hold on to him throughout the rebuild for somebody that, not necessarily is going to earn a huge contract or is as talented as Freddie Freeman when the Braves held him throughout the entire rebuild. Freddie Freeman and Brian De La Cruz are very, very different players. All respect to Brian De La Cruz, but he is not that caliber of a player to build around. And I think everybody knows that. Jazz is the other guy. Do you build around Jazz? Again, I think the trade package surrounding Jazz, because of the years of control and because of his power speed combination, when healthy, Jazz is a game changer. And Bendix knows that. He's the biggest trade asset they have. Jazz is out of here. But I do think Berger, and obviously Yori Perez is so, there's no need to talk of extensions for him yet. He's got so many years of control, and the fact that he's still recovering from Tommy John. Yori Perez, I believe, is somebody that is as close to untouchable in the Marlins organization as you can get. So our next comment here, we got, this is from Ray Masuda, if I pronounced that correctly. What in the actual hell happened to Xavier Edwards? Are we about to have a World War Z outbreak and he's patient zero? So Xavier Edwards, right, made his major league debut with the Marlins, at least last season. And he showed signs that he could play shortstop, that he could play in the infield for the Miami Marlins moving forward. It was a really rough year for Joey Wendell. And ultimately the Marlins get Tim Anderson. They want Xavier Edwards to continue to develop, and that's fine. But he's not playing at all. And you look, and is he injured? What's going on? He's got a bacterial foot infection that has kept him out all of 2024. And it sucks, right? It sucks for his development as a hitter. I got the stats pulled up right here. Going back to last season. This is Xavier Edwards in AAA Jacksonville in 2023. Talk about hitting. hit 351. Had his biggest power outburst with 7 home runs, 130 hits, only struck out 30 times. This is in AAA Jacksonville. Gets called up to the majors, makes his major league debut with the Marlins. In 30 games, he hit 295. Had 3 doubles. 23 hits, only struck out 14 times. So he's getting more hits than he is striking out. So I would say that's a solid major league, cup of coffee. That's a solid way to start your career. And to have 2024 completely derailed by such an unfortunate circumstance as an infection like that. Obviously, first and foremost is the importance of his health. You hope he's got to get healthy first. But Xavier Edwards is somebody that I can continue to see Miami holding out for to be their shortstop of the future. I think he should get a shot when he is healthy, just based on his hitting. I mean, he can play second, he can play short. That middle infield, it can't get any worse than what you have right now. And Tim Anderson, who's completely washed, and then a very experimental Vidal Brujan. Xavier Edwards, still one of the Marlins' top offensive prospects, and somebody that I am anxious to see get back on the field. I really want to see him get back on the field because, like I said, when healthy, he can hit. And middle infield has been a problem for the Marlins, especially last year. Now this year, it continues to be an issue, that and catcher. But Edwards, definitely somebody to continue to hold out hope for and pay attention to. And hopefully he plays this season. Again, I have no idea if he will or not, but Xavier Edwards definitely should be a piece of this rebuild. So that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with baseball fans. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple, again, the same thing. Please share the podcast. It's a rough season for the Marlins, but we are all going to get through this together. And as always, let's go fish.